Madam President, I thank you for convening this meeting and thank Mr. Muhannad Hadi for his presentation, yet again conveying the gravity of the situation in this moment. Madam President, we have spoken many times of transforming the Middle East through peace. This war, this genocide, is transforming the Middle East for generations to come, with the gravest implications for our region and the world. We say once again that this fire will devour everything on its path if it is not urgently stopped. This bloodshed, this inhumanity, has and will have devastating consequences. Some we can all foresee, some we can barely imagine. Madam President, every state presented in these United Nations has a decisive choice to make: whether to defend the rule of international law and the common institutions of humankind, or to defend the massacres perpetrated by this Israeli government. The choice seems quite simple, but it seems a few politicians around the world have difficulties making the right choice, regardless how evident it is. We demand them to stop playing political games with our people's life. Our children should not be sacrificed for the sake of your political calculations and ambitions, nor should they be left as prey to political ideologies blinded by hate and fanaticism. These politicians are the ones who attack judges in order to shield war criminals, who justify mass indiscriminate killing and starvation of an entire civilian population. They are the ones who cynically explain that settlers should be supported and that the indigenous people should be forcibly removed. They are the ones who consider that rights vary according to nationality or faith. To them we say, if you are not able to be on the right side, then at least step aside. No, Netanyahu is not Dreyfus. Netanyahu is not Dreyfus, as the arrest warrant against him has nothing to do with his faith and everything to do with his crimes. Stand up to his divergence and distortions, to his smearing, his threats, and his attacks. The ICC, the ICJ, this Council, and the General Assembly, the Secretary General, and the United Nations are not anti-Semitic. I repeat, they are not anti-Semitic. And Netanyahu's efforts to frame efforts to uphold international law as anti-Semitic must be firmly rebuked. No one should accept such rhetoric, and no one should shy away from taking every step necessary to advance accountability, freedom, and peace. No one should be deterred by the Israeli government's bullying and blackmail. You should not be deterred by the Israeli government's lies and crimes. The Israeli government should be the one to be deterred by your ability and insistence to uphold the law and the truth. You must act now to restore primacy to international law, to the humanitarian and human rights laws that Israel is shredding to the detriment of all. Madam President, Palestinians in Gaza are bracing for another winter as they live in makeshift tents, besieged and bombed, without any infrastructure to sustain life, amidst all the destruction and death, and while famine has made its way into what remains of their lives. How much more suffering must they endure? Their agony must be brought to an end, and life and hope must be restored. Madam President, Israel's war machine must be stopped in Palestine and in Lebanon. It is sowing the conditions of insecurity and hatred for decades. What our region needs is not more wars, but a just and lasting peace. What our region needs is not more occupation and annexation, but respect for the right of peoples to self-determination and sovereignty, and upholding the universal prohibition of the acquisition of land by force. This Israeli government has its plan, the general's plan in Gaza and the settlers' plan in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. These plans are the prolongation of the dispossession and displacement of the Palestinian people over decades, with the certainty of more misery and more death if they refuse. What is the international community's plan? What is your plan, the mighty Security Council? It is enshrined in the UN Charter. That's what should be your plan. UN resolutions and ICJ rulings. However, it requires that decisive measures to be taken to uphold it, to implement this plan, to take it beyond words into deeds, to stop Israeli airplanes, tanks, and bulldozers, to save the millions of children, women, and men whose lives are imperiled, and to chart an irreversible pathway to freedom and justice, the only way to achieve shared peace and security. That is the plan. That should be your plan. Do not allow a solvable political conflict to be transformed into an eternal religious conflict. Don't allow that to happen. This would have terrible, unimaginable consequences for our region and the world. The fate of our region is being determined in Gaza. The fate of our region is being determined in Gaza. And if the horrors continue, it is easy to foresee what that fate would be. Either Gaza becomes the graveyard of international law or the land of its resurrection. The choice is simple and clear, and it is yours. The Israeli government expects the Palestinian people to surrender. We will never surrender. Your governments to surrender. The choice is yours. The UN to surrender. The UN should never surrender. International courts to surrender. They should not surrender. And to betray every principle humanity has ever pledged to uphold and every rule humankind has enacted. Surrender is not an option. Keep dreaming. Surrender will never be an option. Freedom will not be surrendering. The Palestinian people will not surrender. We will continue our struggle for freedom and to put an end to this illegal occupation as the International Court of Justice has articulated. Surrender is not an option. We need to collectively fight back with every legitimate tool at hand to change history's trajectory, to save lives, and all lives, not the lives in your mind, all lives, to uphold the law, to achieve freedom, justice and peace. As we approach the commemoration once more of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, which we will commemorate tomorrow with the presence of your participation of the Security Council through Madam President, we appeal to you to uphold your commitments, your responsibilities, your obligations to act now to protect civilian lives, to bring an end to this abhorrent, illegal situation, and to end the historic injustice inflicted upon the Palestinian people. Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, colleagues, members of the Security Council.
I thank the Permanent Observer of the Observer State of Palestine for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Thank you, Madam President.